Hey guys, it's Vicky, and today I'm here to share with you all the books that I read in the month of November. I had an interesting month in November. The books were kind of scattered in terms of ratings and my likings of the books, but I read a lot. I read, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books? 10 books? Or no, 9 books and I DNF'd one. So let's go ahead and just dive in. So the first book that I completed in November was a book that I listened to on audio, and that book was Within These Walls by Anya Ahlborn. This was my first time reading Anya Ahlborn. I was super excited to get into some of her stuff because I hear that she is a very, very talented horror writer. And overall, I enjoyed this. This one is about a struggling true crime writer who gets contacted by this man who is he's in prison for life for being like I don't know if he was considered a serial killer or what it was, but he was like for murder basically. And he has been in there for like decades and has never talked to anybody. But he kind of cuts a deal with this true crime writer and says, hey, if you go and live at the house where I committed these crimes, I will give you an interview and you can write a book about me or whatever. So of course this guy jumps on at the chance. He moves across the country with his teenage daughter to this house and quickly discovers that there's some creepy stuff about this house. And the story kind of goes from there. So this story deals a lot with like a cult type of phenomena, because this guy who's in prison, he's very much like a Charles Manson sort of person. I would like to think that he was kind of modeled after Charles Manson. So if you like cults, you'll probably like this. There is some supernatural stuff, a bit of a haunted house sort of story, which was also pretty cool. The only thing about this one that I guess sort of, I don't want to say it didn't jive with me, but just made me kind of go, okay, was that it was a very slow build, which isn't always bad. But this one had a bit of a slow build. There were some aspects of the plot itself that kind of pulled me from the story because they just seemed so incredibly unbelievable to me. And the ending, though, was shocking. And I was kind of surprised that Anya Ahlborn went there with the ending. But I liked that. I liked that she kind of surprised me in that way. So overall, I liked the writing. The story was good. It didn't like blow my mind, but it was good. Liked the writing, so I definitely will read more Anya Ahlborn. I've heard that Brother is really good, and that may be the next one I go with for her, but let me know if you guys have read Anya Ahlborn and which books you think I should tackle next by her. So yeah, this one was good. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next up for my local book club, we decided to read Motherless Brooklyn by Jonathan Lethem. We were supposed to go see the movie and we couldn't all get together. Everybody was too busy. So we didn't end up going to see the movie, which I'm kind of bummed about because I feel like this is one of those situations where I'm going to enjoy the movie a lot better than I enjoyed the book. This book deals with a man named, I believe his name was Lionel. Yes. Lionel, who lives in Brooklyn, New York, and has Tourette's syndrome. And he's also an orphan. So he grew up in an orphanage, and has always struggled with his Tourette's because obviously it's one of those conditions that definitely make people turn their heads and think you're, like, what's wrong with this guy and stuff like that. And even though he's a totally like normal guy in terms of intelligence and all of that, he just happens to have this condition, and people obviously judge him for it and in many cases treat him badly. But there is this guy who kind of takes him under his wing as a teenager. He starts working for him. He's a he's involved in some sort of like mob crime, and Lionel works for him and basically sees him as like a father figure. And then at the very beginning, first chapter of the book, in fact, this man is stabbed to death. And so Lionel is trying to find out who killed him. I can't even remember what his name was. Frank. Who killed Frank and why? And yeah, this story didn't drive with me. I think the problem was I felt like I was more than halfway through the story and I felt like it was going nowhere. Like I felt like nothing had happened. That first chapter like really grabbed me because it starts off with this guy being stabbed, and then the next chapter kind of gives you the backstory of how Lionel met Frank and how their relationship became what it was. And then after that, I was just like, it was just dragging and dragging and dragging and dragging. And I think that this is definitely a character story. And I liked Lionel as a character. I really did. He was I loved his kind of like his sense of humor. I loved his loyalty to Frank. And his drive to, figure out what happened to him. But there was just something about it that just didn't connect. Like I said, I thought the plot was really boring. And I struggled to finish this. I really did. I think the only reason I did was because it was a book club book. And I thought I was going to go see the movie, and then we didn't. So I don't know if I would recommend this one, because I just didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't a good reading experience for me. Because I sometimes can do character-driven stories that don't have much of a plot, and I like the character, so it's great. And it just, for some reason in this case, it just didn't work. Even though I liked Lionel as a character and I connected with him on some levels, the rest of the story just didn't work. I don't know if it was the writing or what, but yeah, I didn't really enjoy this, and I gave it 2 stars. So then, as you guys all know, November was Nonfiction November, and the first nonfiction book that I completed for the month was a memoir called Wild Game, My Mother, Her Lover, and Me by Adrienne Brodeur. And this was a memoir dealing with Adrienne and her mother. Her mother, when she was about, I think she was 15, started having this affair with one of her stepfather's really, really good friends. And for some strange reason, Adrienne's mother told her about it and kind of used her to help keep this affair a secret. She was kind of, she would like cover for them and stuff like that so that they could meet. And yeah, the book is about her relationship with her mother and how this affair affected not only their relationship, but Adrienne as a person in the way in which that she had, relationships and interacted with people after that. Because it definitely affected her in kind of a negative light, in a negative way, because she was manipulated by her mother. But at the same time, she loved her mother so much and so wanted her approval and her love, and she like sympathized with her mother and felt like she was helping her by covering up this affair. So it was just a very like manipulative, toxic relationship, and it affected her in many ways. I liked the writing in here. The story was interesting for sure. It definitely was a page turner at times because it was just so drama filled. I definitely left the book not liking her mother very much because looking at it not only as a mother but as a child, I mean, to do that, to manipulate a child that way, I just thought was just not cool. You know what I mean? So, but I also felt like in this book that Adrienne was like telling this story, but then she was also kind of like, oh, but like my mom's a good person, and like almost defending her still, which kind of, I guess, kind of made me mad. I don't know how else to explain it. I felt the same way when I read The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls, because she did this kind of the same thing. She's telling you this story, how her parents were like awful, but then she's like, oh, but like don't hate them. It's like, you know, it's kind of like that. And I felt the same way with this book, that I felt like she was defending this person who, you know, did her wrong in many ways. And then a side note about this book, her mother was a chef and like did cookbooks and stuff. So there's a lot of like food stuff in here. Like if you're a foodie, you'll probably love this. I am not. I don't get into foodie topics in books, or if that's like a thing in books, I don't really care. But if you are a foodie, you might also enjoy that aspect. So yeah, overall, this was a good memoir. It didn't like blow my mind though. So yeah, I would recommend it, but it's not my favorite. And I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, so then after I completed those books, it was time for the Buzzwordathon round 5. I already did a video where I wrapped up these books in more detail, but I just wanted to mention them briefly because I did read them in the month of November. So I read, in this readathon, it was quite a turnaround for me, because I read some really great books during the week. So that was a thing. So I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, gave this 5 stars. I read The 57 Bus by Dashka Slater, 5 stars. I read 10th of December by George Saunders and gave this 3.5, rounded up to 4 stars. And then I read Paper Girls Volume 4 and gave this 3 stars. So yeah, the readathon went really well. I was happy with that. And I had 2 5-star reads in 1 week. That like doesn't happen very much. So that was exciting. Then I had a DNF. So I was like, I was going up, you know, things were improving, and then I DNF'd a book. Yeah, I totally DNF'd Boy Erased by Gerard Conley. I made it pretty far. I made it to page 205. So more than halfway, and decided I was just not going to continue. What happened, what I think also contributed to my DNFing this, was that I stopped listening to the audiobook because I was starting the Buzzword readathon. And so I put this book on hold to do some audiobooks for the readathon. And I was like, I'll go back to this after the week is up. And when I went back, I didn't really want to go back to it. I wasn't really feeling it. And then I was listening to it on Scribd, and for some reason on Scribd, I could not get the audiobook to play. It like wouldn't play, and then it finally did start playing, but it wasn't playing any audio. And I was like, you know what, this is a sign from the book gods that I need to just put this book down. So I DNF'd this. It's about a young man who comes from a religious family, comes out to his family that he is gay, and they send him to a gay conversion camp. And it's about his experience. I think my main issue with this, why I decided to DNF it, was that I just was not connecting with the story at all. It felt very formal to me. When I go into a memoir, I want to really feel for that person and really feel connected to their story, and I just wasn't getting that with this. The writing wasn't bad. The story was interesting. Obviously, I had an interest because otherwise I wouldn't have picked it up, but I just couldn't connect to it, and I felt just this huge distance. I felt like it needed to be more emotional, maybe more gritty. I don't know. I just didn't connect to this at all. So yeah, I'm not going to finish this one. This book will be going on the donation pile. So luckily, after the DNF, I read another fantastic nonfiction book, and it was Voices from Chernobyl by Svetlana Alexievich. Am I saying that right? Sorry. This book is an oral history of the aftermath of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster that happened on April 26, 1986. And yeah, this book was, it was so heavy. And what made it so brilliant was the way in which it was told. It was literally told from the people that lived through it, and during what was happening when it was going on, and then even in the aftermath. All of the interviews in this book took place around 10 years after the disaster. So, and she talked to everybody, all different types of people, doctors, physicists, farmers, grandmothers, obviously people that were in the military. She talked to everybody. And they told their story, and it's told through their voice, and that way of telling it was absolutely brilliant. With that being said, this was a very difficult read. I had to read it in small doses because it was emotional. It was really tough. The things that these people lived through, continue to live through, and the aftermath of this disaster, it was just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It's sickening. The ways in which their government lied to them, failed them, it's infuriating. Ugh. So I had to read it in small doses throughout the month. I started this even before the Buzzwordathon, but I had to read it in 20-page increments because it was just so hard to get through, but so important. The only thing I would say about this is I think what helped me going into this was that I had watched the Chernobyl miniseries on HBO, so I had background information. I think if you went into this not knowing anything about the nuclear disaster that happened there, you might be a little lost because she doesn't really give you that background into this is what happened, this is what caused the accident, this, this, and this. She just dives right into these people's stories. So if you don't have any background, you might be a little bit confused. I went into it knowing the gist. So maybe just kind of have that in the back of your mind if you're going to read this, that it's very much more about how it affected the people and the after effects. So, but yeah, this book was brilliant, fantastic, loved it, and I obviously gave it 5 stars. And then the last book that I completed in November was another audiobook. I listened to Rainbow Valley by Ella Montgomery. This is the 7th book in the Anne of Green Gables series. So I'm almost done, you guys. I'm so excited. This one, without getting too spoilery, deals with, I thought going into it, it was going to more deal with Anne's children, but it actually mainly deals with a group of kids, a group of siblings that live they're neighbors to Anne's family. So Anne's children are in this book, but they're not the focus of the book. And Anne certainly is not the focus of the book. She's barely in the book. So I was a little bit surprised by that, but I did enjoy the story. It was, kind of cozy like the Anne books tend to be. There's funny stories in here, funny little incidences. There's love stories. There's, town gossip, town drama, the typical stuff. This very much reminded me of, I don't know if any of you back in the day watched the show Avonlea. I believe it was on, I know for me, I think it was on the Disney Channel back then. And it didn't deal with any specific characters from, I don't think, from Ella Montgomery's books. I think all the characters were made up for the show. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that show dealt with just what was going on in Avonlea, and it kind of focused on a few different families. That show did have Marilla from the Anne books, and Rachel Lynn, of course. But other than that, I think all the characters were just kind of made up for the show, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this book reminded me of Avonlea, even though it's Ingleside. It's not actually Avonlea. But, yeah. just kind of the way it kind of dealt with like different people in the town and whatnot. So it was enjoyable. I liked it. I did miss Anne a bit though. I will say I wanted more Anne. So overall though, enjoyable. It was an enjoyable audiobook and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Okay guys, so those are all the books that I read in November. It was a pretty good month. I mean, it was kind of one of these though. I had like 2-star reads. I had a couple of 5-star reads, which is rare. I had a DNF. It was kind of everywhere. But it was a good month. So yeah, let me know what you guys read this month. I would love to hear, especially if you read any great nonfiction books for Nonfiction November, or what kind of books you read for the Buzzwordathon if you took part. Yeah, it was an interesting month, and I hope that you guys had a good month. We had kind of a busy month here with my daughter's birthday. She turned 5. My grandma turned 90, so we had a party for her. Obviously the Thanksgiving holiday, the kickoff to Christmas. It's been a month. It was a good month. It was good. And I'm really looking forward to December. So yes, I hope that you guys had a great month and that December also treats you well. And I'll talk with you very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.